Sometimes the most effective thing you can do is to tell a lie. I don't recommend it. In fact, it almost always comes back to bite you. But sometimes the most effective strategy against you as a leader will be someone who's willing to lie. Because in their mind, well, the ends justify the means. Whatever they can do to win the game, whatever the cost to you or anybody else, they don't care. And sometimes the most effective thing your enemy can do is to tell a lie. That's what I'm going to talk about today on Leading Leaders. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders podcast. Maybe you've been the victim of that lie that seems to take traction like a snowball rolling downhill. It starts off really small. Somebody just drops a hint or a suggestion into the pool of conversation around the water cooler or the coffee shop, and all of a sudden there's some big story going on about you in the background that maybe you don't even get to hear it for a while it gains traction, while it builds momentum. And the next thing you know, you're standing in front of the board, or you've been called into the HR office and you're trying to defend yourself against a lie. See, there are all kinds of accusations that can be made that are destructive. There are accusations that can be made that require no basis in truth whatsoever. Just an opinion. Maybe not even opinion, just a false conjecture. Yeah, there are times that someone out of spite or out of jealousy, or because they want your position or they want the promotion that you got, they'll just drop a little seed of doubt. You know, even in our court of law, we are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Meaning the defense attorney really only has to prove that there's a reason to question the accusation. Or so it's been in our country for over 200 years. Our standard of legal justice has been that you are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That is not so in the court of public opinion. That is not so in the workplace. That is not so in the church. That is not so in your community or in your neighborhood. No, if you're accused of something, even if the accusation has zero merit whatsoever, it will damage your leadership opportunities. It could damage your freedom. You could be arrested or indicted or at least brought in front of a grand jury for something that you actually didn't do, you had no part in. Because we've reached a place in our society where the use of the accusation to kneecap the opponent has become a very effective tool. Let me just give you an example. If I were a young woman working in a workplace and I were to go to the wife of the owner or the CEO, my leader, my manager, and just ask a question like, next time your husband grabs my breast, how would you like me to respond? Now see, in that question, there's an accusation. And that accusation may rest in zero truth at all. The event has never taken place. It has never happened even once. There is no merit whatsoever to the foundation of the premise behind the question, and yet the question causes doubt. The question makes you wonder if that boss, that leader, that husband has been unfaithful, has been inappropriate in the workplace. And just that question alone could create enough of a firestorm to cost a man his job or maybe even his marriage. But see, those kinds of questions and accusations, they're hurled around on a regular basis. The implication that kind of gets a wink and a nod that everybody, they know what you're talking about, even though there's really not an accusation there, because if there was a genuine accusation, then that person could be fired or even sued for slander. No, they're not going to take that chance. They're not going to go that far. But they are going to imply enough to make everybody ask the question, is this person really a person of integrity? Well, it happens to people, especially in religious leadership, all the time. They're accused of things. I remember, in fact, not too long ago, a Supreme Court justice was accused of things that apparently, allegedly, happened 30 years back. But there was no corroborating evidence. It was the accusation alone that became national news coverage. It was the accusation alone that became the fodder of every talk show on earth. It was the accusation alone that nearly ended this person's career, damaged their marriage, damaged their public reputation and their community involvement reputation because of an accusation. Turns out the accusation didn't have enough merit to stand up in a court of law, and the accusation was later withdrawn from the accuser. Truth was, just like what I'm talking about today, an accusation with no truth in it still can be a very effective measure. So how do you guard yourself against that? Well, as a leader, the first thing you've got to be willing to do is admit there may be people in my life who are jealous and unscrupulous. There may be people that I lead who I can't trust with any kind of conversation beyond strictly business. There may be people who could be gotten to, so to speak, by outsiders who would say, I'll give you a nice handsome check or a nice vacation or a better job or another raise if you'll just ask the question in public that will cause enough irreparable public damage to this person's reputation that they're no longer a factor for us. Oh yeah, it happens all the time in politics and in business espionage. And believe it or not, I think, this is just my opinion, the whole Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, all of that was about the same kind of stuff. It was, how do we get people in compromising positions who are in leadership so that we can use that leverage against them when they don't behave the way we want, make decisions the way we want, vote the way we want, write policy the way we want, align themselves with the people we want. We'll use this scandal, if you will, to destroy them in the future. And it's, of course, the same reason that that whole process of legality has been tainted from the beginning, because there's some big, powerful people who've been tied up in it. Big, powerful people whose reputations are at risk, whose reputations are on the line, whose careers could end in jail time if they're discovered and found guilty of what they're being accused of. But see, as long as you can play that game with the rich and powerful, there's money to be made at it. There's a change of hands to be made at it. What if you're the victim? What if you yourself become the victim of these unwarranted, untrue accusations? Well, you've got to be careful who you surround yourself with. It's really the only guard. Live an impeccable life. Live a life of integrity. Know that you are the kind of person that everybody thinks you are. Don't just put on for show when you're out there in the public. When you stand up as a leader to make a business decision or a public declaration, make sure that that declaration aligns with your core values, your personal decisions, your life behavior. When those two are consistent, it becomes really hard for anybody to make an accusation against you, because people just look at you and go, yeah, we don't believe it. There's no truth in it, and it's obvious. And we also live in a day when, in the founding of our country, the turn of the nation was based on some pretty powerful words. One set of those words was, we believe these truths to be self-evident. We believe these truths to be self-evident, meaning this is a truth so obvious as the nose on your face that it's really hard to argue with. And the following statement was, all men are created equal, endowed with inalienable rights. You can't take those away. Those rights didn't come from government, so they can't be taken by government. But see, the foundation of that whole concept rests in the fact that we believe these truths to be self-evident. Today, we don't live in truth that is self-evident. We live in truth that is self-created. We get to make up our own truth. Whatever we want to be true, well, for today, that's true. And so long as someone's willing to declare that it's true, everybody else has to figure out how to deal with it. And that's where a lot of leaders find themselves trapped. They're being judged by a world of falsities called truth. A lot of ideologies have no basis in truth. They have a basis in, well, just someone else's idea, someone's opinion, the way they want it to be. And if you as a leader are held to a standard that is ambiguous, that's constantly moving because, well, nobody really knows what truth is, it's just who gets to make the decision on truth for this week based on their political power, their financial power, their position. If you're the leader caught up in that, you may find yourself fighting against a whirlwind, trying to lead, when people are accusing you left and right of what has no merit, no basis in actual truth at all. But for the day, it's politically expedient for them to tell the lies that they hold to be truth. You can only guard yourself against this by living a life of impeccable integrity. When others are going to lie about you, there should be enough evidence to prove that what they're saying is a lie. There should be enough evidence because you've always done the same thing in the same way. If someone were to call my wife for an example and say, "We saw your husband drunk at such and such a place," that conversation is already over. Why? Well, because in 27 years of marriage, my wife has never seen me drunk. Why? Because in my life, I have never, not one time, been drunk. The entire amount of alcohol that I have consumed from the day of my birth until today, all poured into one pitcher, wouldn't fill a sweet tea pitcher. To say that I've been drunk means either somebody has slipped me a Mickey or you're just flat up lying. It's a really dangerous accusation for you to make, to say that I was drunk, because it's just so far out of character. There's zero history, zero risk of it ever being proven true. When you've lived a life where you can make direct, absolute statements like that, then that's going to have less effect in damaging your reputation. Now, there are other areas in my life, like my temper and my former addiction to pornography. Those might be at risk. If somebody were to say, "I once saw," well, back when, more than 20 years ago now, that would have been a possibility. Not today, but I can't unprove what didn't happen more than 20 years ago. You see what I'm saying? See, every leader is vulnerable to the untruth. Every leader is vulnerable to the untruth, because people unscrupulous enough to make up a lie to destroy your reputation, they'll stop at nothing to destroy your reputation. So you've got to guard it. As a leader, you've got to guard your reputation. First, by living an impeccable life, and second, by guarding yourself from the people that you allow into your inner circle and into your life. I hope you'll take those cautions and those precautions, because we live in a day where self-evident truth is not so self-evident anymore. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.